about exactly what she means. So let's all make a heart for our amazing Julia. Take it away, Julia.
Thank you. Thanks as always, Tess. I love being here with all of you. It's nice to see all your faces. I'm getting to know some of you and seeing new faces, which is so awesome. Yeah, so unconditional love. What I find with parenting is that every parent obviously loves their children. That's a given. Even when we're upset with them, we love our children. We know that. The question is, do they? And that becomes the difference between unconditional love and conditional love. So we think we unconditionally love our children because we do, right? But the reality is that when we're upset with them, when we're having a moment, right, where we feel like we just can't handle them, we are even at times when we're praising them for different things, right? There's a conditional message that's going across to them, and that's what we want to become aware of, right? So the obvious one is they're throwing something and you're like just freaking out, and you start to have a escalated energy towards them, right? All of a sudden that love energy is gone. So to the child on the receiving end, they're like, oh, it's conditional, right? If I'm bad, I lose the love, right? So that's what they're feeling. And so we just have to be aware of that when we're delivering our messages, right? So that doesn't mean we just let them do whatever they want to do. What we want to do instead is let them know, hey, you know what? I'm not loving what you're doing right now, like what you're doing right now. And I love you, right? Let's try and do it this way. So there's different ways to obviously speak to them, but the key is to be conscious of, are they questioning at all that I love them in this moment, right? And what I want you to really be thinking about is, like, there's the escalated anger type of, fearful or angry response that we can have. And there's also the withholding response that we can have, which is that punishing silent treatment. That's also extremely confusing to the child. So you want to be conscious of that, because suddenly, again, it's conditional, right? Well, if I didn't do it their way, the way they were expecting, then it's not actually me feeling loved by my parents. Does that make sense? Right? So the key here is we're going to end up delivering messages in ways that we're not happy with. That's normal. It's going to happen. I'm not trying to put pressure on that way. What I want you to be conscious of is, if you realize you've done it, go back and repair it, right? Clear it. Say, I realize it may have felt like I don't love you when I just did that, right? Or that you may wonder if I love you right now. And I love you. I love you no matter what you're doing, right? Clarify that. And when this happens, I get frustrated. Yes, like, can we find another way to do this? Right. And so we can find ways to help them change whatever that behavior is, without it becoming, oh, the love is gone. Right. So again, it's about the energy of love. Right. I don't want my child to just know that I love them. I want them to feel that I love them. So we have to be conscious of that energy. So that's kind of the messaging behind it. Yeah, that's sort of the main delivery part of it. So what did that, do you have any questions for you guys, or any examples, or any thoughts? I mean, I'll sort of open it up to you guys. Did something come up for you when I said all that?
Well, I'm interested in, I have some ideas because I love energy work. And I really like, I think that so often our energy is different than our words. And our energy is different than our actions. And I personally believe that if we set up our energy in the morning and then keep it like that, like with the kids today, we did big heart bubbles, and I was like, you can keep that with you all day. You get to choose. And the kids were like, they really got it right away. Lucas was like, I can just be happy. And I was like, yeah, you can just choose to be in your happy energy, in your bubble. And no matter what happens, stay in that energy. So I guess that what I'm getting at is the idea of energetically choosing is something that we're not always taught, though.
No.
Like a lot of the time we say energy and people think woo woo. They're like, oh, that's weird. But it's actually so real. So what I'm wondering is, how would you, I know how I would try to explain it, but how would you say how would you do this if your kid was, if Priyana was being was really pushing all your buttons? What's a tool that you use in your own life to keep in that energy?
So not repair, but actually, so before I have to repair,
Yeah,
is that
before,
the
like,
idea? Yeah.
yeah, let's do
Yeah.
both, but let's start with the
Sure.
before. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I said that is because so much of the percentage of the time is we do have to repair. It's just really important
Mhm.
because we put way too much pressure on ourselves. It's very, very difficult, especially if it's, well, it doesn't matter if we didn't sleep well, if it's end of day, if I didn't get to eat, there's things that are going to make me more irritable, and then that isn't going to be sustainable, right? So going back into that, clearing the energy immediately, right? When you've realized you're there, you've done it, you can come back to it and clear it. So I'm going to go with that one first. Is that okay? So I've done the delivery. Too late. Oh no, right? And then we're going to come back, and depending on what the scenario is, I'm going to own it. Right? It's very, very important to just own it. Hey, earlier when we were sitting down, and this is any age, just change the way you speak the language, but the delivery of the concept is the same, which is acknowledge it, own it, let them know that wasn't okay. Mommy was frustrated, or mommy was whatever, that you were feeling. And right, this is that critical piece. We don't say but, we go to and this is what I need, or this is what would be great, right? So we're clearing it, and mommy loves you all the time. Right? We're all mommies here right now, right? Yeah. So I'm just sticking to mommy. Um, that's really the messaging we want to go to. So you immediately come and soften, right, so that they can feel your love again, and it just
Mhm.
kind of recalibrates them, right? That's the key there. Now the practice that we want to do what you would like, Tess, which is to stay in that good energy all the way through, right, is all about the self-care. And yeah, what is my intention for today? And that's like a consistent practice that we really need to build as a habit.
Mhm.
Otherwise it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So in all my renewed parenting stuff, that's all I talk about: self-care, self-care, self-care. It's like the beginning of my whole program. Is if you don't have self-care, you can't do anything else, right? So we have to be conscious of how to recharge our battery, right? Refill ourselves. And if that means getting better sleep, what do I need to do for sleep? Am I going to do some breath work before I go to sleep that's specifically for sleeping, right? I've discovered that's really good. So,
Mhm.
and yeah, like what do you need to make sure that you're capable of staying in that good energy? And everyone's
Yeah.
going to be a bit different, right? So
Mhm.
some of my parents were like, well, it's exercise. Exercise will keep me there. If I keep my endorphins up, then I'm good to go, right? So, but if I miss my workout, I know my day is shot, right? Others will be, just a meditation, for example. Like if I miss my meditations in the morning, I don't have as good a day, right? Like it's just the truth. And some people will be like, well, do you really want to be that dependent on something like that? Like,
I
I'm
do.
dependent on, why not?
If
Like
it's
I'm dependent on,
meditation,
exactly. Like we depend on
I'd
brushing our
rather be.
teeth. There's lots of things we do, right, that are good for us that we have to actively do. So yes. So these are the things you want to ask yourself in terms of how do I keep myself replenished so that I can stay in that softened energy. So even if
Mhm.
they're charging me up, then I can come back and respond with the energy you want, right?
Right. I
Yeah.
actually really like the word soft. I use the word soft when when you can feel hard, like the feeling of being sharp. Um,
Yes,
so
exactly.
for me, there's a sharp me that can come out if I'm having big feelings and I haven't, and I can literally be like soft eyes. And for me, it involves like, I imagine putting like a filter over my eyes and over the situation that's almost like it's like a fog. It's like for me, it's like, I just have to imagine myself literally softening. And when I look in the mirror, if I'm having a moment, I look at myself with soft eyes and I say soft eyes, which means like,
Mm.
I love myself. I'm not going to look at myself and think of all the things I don't like. I'm not going to like, nyeh, 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 nyeh. And so I soft eyes with people too, though. Um, And for me, just having the word soft eyes will remind me to not look at them in the pointy me, like the
Yeah,
angles. And I write that sometimes, like sometimes I just wake up and I feel pointed. I feel like the angled self, and I have to work harder that morning to get into the soft person. And it's like sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes she comes out, of course. But for me, it's like pointed versus soft. And
that's so
so to
cool.
come at all the people in my life with the soft eye energy, and myself also with that eyes, with those eyes, instead of like the
Totally.
like it's
Yeah,
like iceberg.
I love that.
I'm called an ice queen.
Yeah, I still
For
find
real.
that
That's what
hilarious,
like the
but
people who are closest to me, they're like,
it's,
yep. It's a little less now. I think I've got the ice queen sort of under control, but I have been called an ice queen before.
hilarious.
Surprise,
So
surprise.
funny. So
um,
funny.
so does anyone here have any questions? We can also go through some other sort of techniques to get like to
Before
get
we
to
jump
those
to
soft
questions, I
eyes.
do have one
Yeah.
more comment. So I was
Yeah,
starting
go
to say
ahead.
about the praising, right? So the conditional love can also come
Mm.
across in terms of when we're really happy with them, then we have this great energy, right? When they meet our expectations, right? So then it becomes conditional as well. We don't really realize that, but it's conditional because, but when I did, let's say you don't appreciate something they do in ballet class, but you really appreciate the grade. I mean, very stereotypical, but then all of a sudden, oh, I don't matter when I'm a dancer, right? But I only matter when I get this grade. And so that's conditional energy as well, right? Because the energy that goes up is like, yeah, you got a 98, right? That's a great energy, except it's conditional now because when they did this perfect plie, you didn't say anything, or you're like, oh, yay. So you want to really be conscious of being consistent with that messaging too, right? Just
Mm.
be present for them and just be in that wow state with them in general, right? It's not about what you think is the greatest thing, it's about what they do, right? So stay with their wow factor. And there's a question in the adult attachment inventory, which is a clinical tool that I use, and in it there's one question, which is, when you were a kid, did anyone ever have that gleam in their eye when they looked at you, right? And that
Mm.
gleam in their eye is kind of this wow factor. And I know very specifically that I do it for my kids. Like, I've consciously always done it. And so I asked Priyana, my daughter, I'm like, did anyone ever? And then she's like, she looks at me and she's like, yeah, you know who, right? So, but that's the energy you want them to pick up, right? Like, I was very conscious of, they just walk by for no reason, I'd just be, wow, like, you're just amazing, right? Why? Just cuz, right? And they, like, the older one was like, I don't get it. Why? Right? Like, there's no reason. You walk by, I love your energy, I love where you're at, I just love you. And I'm just wow, right? And so they slowly took that, and that builds their confidence, because it's just them as human. It's not based on their behaviors, right? That they're getting the good energy. So that's another way of ensuring unconditional love, because it's literally not based on any condition. So
I'm just wow. That is such a nice thing. I'm just wow at
yeah,
you. I'm just
it's
wow. I do know that when I'm like, I know when I have that feeling towards somebody. I have it mostly towards children, a little less towards adults.
yeah,
But it's easy for me to find that with other people's children. I don't have any of my own yet, but I know that wowness. I
yeah.
know what you're saying. That was really well put.